turn the coffee maker off? I walked over to it, but did I turn it off? I can't remember. I saw the light on, but did I actually turn the switch off?
One kiss doesn't make me a lesbian, does it?
Oh, sorry.
2 slices of toast, 150 calories, plus a tab and a half of butter, another 150.
So estrogen is good for the heart, but bad for the breasts.
What?
My kid doesn't eat Ritalin.
Only get him to listen to what I say.
Monsieur, I need to poop.
Oh, boy.
Oh, God. He nearly killed me. Too bad he missed.
So how many of you princess warriors can relate to that? All them thoughts going through your head. They used to have a thing every morning on the rock station here in El Paso where they'd have I think it was every Thursday morning, about what women are thinking, and it was all kinds of confusing garbage, it's all kind of really funny, Okay, how many of you warriors are really confused about what women want? Yeah, well, if you're honest, I bet you are, yeah. The funny thing was, I was watching an old Western the other night, and in that Western, it was old black and white, and the guy was saying something about, about what women are thinking, or what it is that they're thinking, and he said, well, don't ever, ignore that one because you'll never figure that out. And the other guy said, well, but they know what we're thinking, I guess there's a lot of truth to that. It's kind of upset me. I don't know. Well, us guys obviously don't want the same things that they do we? It doesn't seem to be the same thing. Well, that's because we're different. That's because we're totally different. But instead of, a lot of times us guys make our women feel, instead of making them feel more womanly and wanted and inviting and beautiful and all that kind of stuff, we usually end up saying and doing stuff that makes them feel less than that way. So it's kind of one of those confusing things. Even though I purposely didn't watch this movie for a lot of years, I knew it was on and all that kind of stuff, I figured, well, it's just going to be a chick flick, so I wasn't going to bother watching it, But curiosity got the best of me one day, and I finally had to stop and watch the movie, What Women Want. Because I thought, well, maybe there's some answers there, I don't know. You might find out something you didn't know before. I was really curious to know, what do women want? Well, I don't know. I still haven't come up with an answer. But let me just welcome you to our brand new series, What Women Want. This is week number 1 of this series. We're going to be talking about what women want for the next, 2 or 3 or 4 weeks. And found out some really interesting stuff in the Bible, was things we can learn from what God says about women and why they were created and those kind of things. And as a matter of fact, in this series, what we're going to be talking about is the fact that God has created women to reveal a part of himself that would otherwise probably escape our notice, especially us guys. And gals as well, I think, to some degree. But that God has created women for a specific purpose, for a specific reason, and that really is to help us understand that part of God that we probably wouldn't see otherwise. So, I think part of the problem, or the major problem that we face in understanding the female gender is that, and even women in trying to understand themselves, I think, I'm going to say that even though I don't really know that for a fact, is I think we generally ask the wrong questions. That's my opinion. I think we ask the wrong questions, and that's why our society today has such a hard time defining the woman's role as compared to the man's role, all those different kind of things, is because I think we're asking the wrong questions. I think instead of asking, things like our society asks, what should a woman do, or what should a woman be, what is a woman's role in this world, all those different kind of questions that we keep asking about women, I think those are the wrong questions. I think that we're asking questions from the wrong direction. I think the question we really need to be asking is, what is a woman? Rather than what should a woman do, what should a woman be, I think we should be asking the question, what is a woman? Why did God create Eve to begin with? That's the question. And that's what we're going to be talking about. What is a woman? Why did God create women, or a woman, to begin with? So let me just say as we begin that, God has blessed us with a team of warriors and princess warriors here who support this ministry on a regular basis, monthly basis, both financially as well as physically. And if you'd like to join that team of supporters, we just invite you to do that. We definitely could use your support, your financial support, as well as your physical support. And that's what keeps the lights on here. That's what keeps us going. That's what keeps this message going out literally throughout the world. So at this point, let me welcome those of you who are viewing us online as well. We got people that are viewing us online all over the United States as well as all around the world. I mean, hundreds of people all around the world watch us every week. We're just glad to have you with us. Welcome. Lord bless you all. So if by chance you haven't seen, how many of you have seen the movie, What Women Want? Let me ask that question first. Okay, so if you haven't seen that movie, I'd encourage you to watch it. It's a comedy. It's funny. It's good. It's enjoyable. It's one of those things I'd watch it again. I think it was enjoyable. What Women Want is about a guy by the name of Nick who gains the power to hear what women are thinking. And the way he gains that power is through an accident in the bathroom. I think he gets shocked or something like that. And so he has this ability from that point on to hear what women are thinking, even if they don't say it with their mouth. He can hear everything that they're thinking. And because of his ability, he's able to basically become, one of the girls because he knows what they're thinking and, at any given moment. Actually, the thing that makes this movie so appealing, I think, is that Nick's life-altering ability allows him this golden opportunity to reach out to his own daughter, because he can understand her. He can hear what she's thinking. And basically to stop taking women at his office where he works for granted, and to actually truly be able to see what relationship is like, a monogamous relationship, and what that's like for real. And he learns a lot of stuff in that way. So in our attempt to answer the question for real, this question for real, what do women want? I want to take us back to the beginning, the book of beginnings, the book of Genesis. I want to start us there. There's some things that I think we can learn there that may have escaped our notice. We may have seen that before. Some things there that I think we can learn about what women want and why God created women to begin with. All the way back to the story of Eve. And I think that can help us understand what God's purpose is in creating women in the first place. So, I think the reason why us guys find women to be so mysterious and so unbelievably attractive is that, is because that's the way God has created them to be. Even though we all probably have heard the creation story many times over, we've all heard all about that. We already think we know all the details that are there. I wonder if we really understood what that creation story is all about, especially in relation to God's creation of Eve. That's what I want to talk to you about, especially in relation to God's creation when He created Eve. It seems obvious to me that many of us, both men and women, really don't understand. Well, why don't we understand? Because I think that we can see that we don't understand because men still treat women like men do, right? If we understood the purpose, the reason why God created women, I think us men would probably change how we view women altogether. And we would treat them differently. And on the other side of that, women still struggle with who they are, and especially with what they look like in the eyes of others, even in the eyes of other women. So as we already know, the Bible begins with the story about creation. It tells us about the fact that God created the heavens and the earth and everything that's in it, and all that kind of stuff. However, what I find is interesting here is that when God began creation, He started with absolutely nothing, right? We know that. He started with nothing, and then He created the least to the greatest. And I think that's an important point. I want to make it an important point at this time anyway. Is that, in other words, after God separated the light from the darkness and the water from the dry land, it says He then caused vegetation to grow on the land, And then he brought about bugs and fish and animals and all those different kind of things, right? So there's an order there. It begins with light, separating light from darkness, and all those different kind of things, and then from grass and bugs and those kind of things to stuff that might eat grass and bugs and those kind of stuff, to things that might eat animals and those kind of things, all the way on up, all the way to from the least to the greatest, all the way to the top of that order. And God created it in that order on purpose. Now, certainly, if you want to look at it from a logical standpoint, it's logical. Of course he would do it that way. If he created animals first with nothing to eat, right, well, they're going to go hungry. Right? If you create a cow with no grass for the cow to eat, you got a problem. Well, logically, that makes sense. But I think we may have missed a part of that story that also I think is just as important. And that's really where we're kind of headed. Is that everything else, after everything else was totally ready, light from darkness, grass, trees, bugs, fish, animals, all that kind of stuff, God then said, let us make man in our image and according to our likeness. Okay, we know that as well, right? We already know that that's what God did. Now, what I want to tell you, though, is that God created man second to last. God created men second to last. Are you with me so far? Okay. I say second to last because I want you to notice that the very next thing that happens after God created Adam is that he said, it says, out of the ground the Lord God formed every beast of the field and every bird of the sky and brought them to the man to see what he would call them. And whatever the man called them, every living creature, that was its name. The man gave names to all the cattle and to the birds of the sky and to every beast of the field. But for Adam, there was not found a helper suitable for him. Okay, we've looked at that before. I've looked at that before many, many times, as probably a lot of you have. But what I want you to notice is the very next thing that God did after he created Adam was that he trotted all these animals and all these creatures before Adam to see what he would call them, right? And whatever he decided to call them, that was what their name was. So, how many times, let me ask you a question here, how many times during this creative process, during this process of when God said, okay, here they are, I'm going to trot all these animals, you call them by name, how many times did Adam say, hold it, that's it, that's the one I want to spend the rest of my life with? Not once, did he? Not once. Not once did he say, now wait a minute, there's one, I could spend the rest of my life with that one for sure, Yeah. Not even once. As a matter of fact, what God says here in the last part of this verse is that there wasn't found anything there that was suitable for Adam. Though it would seem that God is trying to find something for Adam to be happy spending the rest of his life with. I mean, the dog is often called man's best friend, right? That's a lot of times what the dog is known by today, maybe for many, many centuries. So maybe God was trying to convince Adam that he could live with a dog the rest of his life and be perfectly happy. I know some of us guys are thinking that right now. We're going, you know what? I think I could be happy with a dog the rest of my life, Well, okay, that's all right. But I don't think that's what God's doing here. I think actually the opposite. That's exactly the opposite is happening. Is that God is proving to Adam that there is nothing here on the face of this planet that was going to be that individual, that animal, that whatever, that could be suitable for him and make him happy for the rest of his life. There's nothing there. I mean, no matter how well those animals might listen to him, and we all can relate to that. No matter how good your dog or your cat listens to you or your horse, no matter how much you talk to them and all those different kind of things, and they seem to listen and they seem to care and they seem to be so sympathetic and all those different kind of things, no matter how much they do that, not one single one of them can fill the deepest need within Adam's life. I would be willing to guess that Adam probably tried. He probably had some real fine pets. as we do. I love my little dog. He's a great little guy. He's happy all the time. We have lots of good times together. I also love my big old black cat. He's his own person. And if he wants me to pet him, and then he comes to me, and if he doesn't want me to pet him, then he doesn't, He's a cool cat. He's really awesome. I already told you about that last week. He got a bobtail. He's a cool cat. But you know what? Not a single one of those that God trotted past Adam was going to fill his deepest need in life. What was that need? Well, his need then was for deep, personal, intimate relationship. I've said before, it's a good place to say it again, that you can't have a relationship without communication. I mean, I realize that you and your animals can communicate to some degree, but you can't have a deep conversation. It's a one-sided conversation, and you think you can hear what they're saying, but that's not the same, is it? On the other side of that, think about this. Think about this. When God created all the animals, He created them what? Male and female, right? At this point in time, Adam is the only one that has not been yet created male and female. Everybody else, everything else has its mate. Everything else on the face of this earth has its mate. And God trotted all those male and females past Him to see what He would call them. All of them had their own mate, but Adam, did he have his own mate? He didn't find a mate among that bunch, did he? No, he didn't. She was not there. There was not the female side of Adam. Adam was by himself. So after Adam had come to the realization, I think that's what God was trying to do with him, was to help him to come to the realization that nothing on this earth at that point could fill the deepest longing, the deepest need within his life. And so then God created Eve. Now, if you haven't caught it yet, I'm going to say it straight out. Gals, don't listen. Plug your ears and go, la, 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 la.
Now that you told us to, we'll never do that.
Dag nabbit. God saved the best for last. I didn't say that. I'm going to get mugged on my way out of church today. Yeah. Some of you women want to be bodyguards for me on my way out today? Woo. Okay. So you know the story. Let's look at it. God, it says, the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon the man, and he slept. Then he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh at that place. The Lord God fashioned into a woman the rib which he had taken from the man, and the man brought her to the man. The man said, "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man." Okay. I began by saying that God created from the least to the greatest, did I not? I've already admitted that God saved the best till last. That tells me that, with this line of thinking, that tells me that woman is the crown of God's creation. Now let me explain. Before you decide to lynch me, don't rush the podium here. Not only is she the last thing that God created, but she's the greatest. In my opinion, what God did in creation is much like that literary device that Solomon uses in the book of Proverbs, when he talked about and some of you will remember this, he said there are 6 things that God hates. No, there are 7 which are an abomination to him. Remember that? If you don't remember it, there it is. Check it out. There are 6 things which the Lord hates. Yes, 7 which are an abomination to him. That's it. And I've told you before, this is a literary device whereby the last thing is stated as the first. Or, if you want to think about it the other way, the last thing, that's where the emphasis is, right? It's not, he didn't forget. He didn't say there's 6 things that God hates. No, wait a minute, no. There's one more. Oh yeah, there's never mind, there's 7. That's not it. It's a literary device by which he is saying, listen, I'm going to put the emphasis on the last thing as being the thing that God hates the worst. There's 6 things God hates, but this 7th one, that's the worst. Now, in our way of thinking, we would put from 1 to 10. What's the worst? Number 1, here's the worst, right? Or if you want to look at it the other way, we'll go from 10 to 1. Number 10 is this one, but number 1 is down here because it's the worst. Okay? That's what he's doing here. Now, if you recall, and I'm going to remind you that the thing God hates the worst, the 7th thing, is gossip. It's gossip. And you all know, we don't put up with gossip around here. It ain't happening. When I first came to this church 14 years ago, that was a huge problem. It took about 3 years to get it all put down, but I ain't putting up with it. And still ain't putting up with it. God hates gossip, and I can see why. Okay, enough of that. Whew! Preach it, brother! Huh? Yeah. Do I get an amen? No, don't throw rocks either. Okay, so in the creation, what I want you to see is that he's saying the 7th thing is actually the most important thing that God hates the worst. In creation account, then, I think we're finding the same kind of a thing that's going on. It's kind of like God is saying there is one thing that I have created in my image, no, 2 that are the crown of my creation. Now don't get confused because I'm going to explain this. There's one thing in my creation that's the greatest thing. It's man. No, there's 2. It's man and woman. It's that are the crown of my creation. In that sense, places the emphasis on the last being that God created, which is the woman. Being the greatest, the crown of God's creation. Yes, there's no doubt mankind, humanity, the human race in general is the crown of God's creation. I'm not arguing that point. Mankind is the crown of God's creation. However, the being that seems to be the most awesome being ever created is woman. Is the women. Okay? Whew. Boy, I hated saying all that. Yeah, no, I don't. So let me ask you a question right here. What is it about women that makes them the crown of God's creation? What is it about women that makes them the crown of God's creation? Actually, before we can really answer that question, we first need to understand that since mankind was created in God's image, and we all have been created to reveal God in and through our lives, right? We've all been created in God's image. All of us are created to reveal God in and through our lives. More specifically, I think we've been created to reveal a certain kind of life, God's life within us, more specifically. However, since mankind was created by God as 2 separate beings, male and female, Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, not only do males and females look alike in a physical sense, I guess in a sense, but we also look very differently, right? Mankind looks the same in as far as arms and legs and all that kind of stuff, but males and females look differently. It's just simple nature, fact of the matter, right? But we also are very different emotionally, are we not? Males and females are very different emotionally, with very different thinking processes. It's a given. It's the way it is. Meaning that we each have a very different and unique role to fill in God's plan within creation. Okay, I hope I'm making that clear enough. Hopefully it'll become clear if I'm not. So it's my opinion that based on what God says in His Word, that Adam and Eve were created as two separate beings for the purpose of revealing a part of God that would otherwise be hidden from our notice. In other words, in men, God reveals that part of Himself that men reveal. In women, God reveals a part of that self that women reveal. In other words, Adam, through us guys, reveals that part of God that is very much the fearless warrior, the one who defends, the one who protects. I mean, guys, right? In school, it's always the boys that are the problem, right? In a general sense, I mean, look at the school shootings. Who is it? It's the guys that do the shootings, not the girls. That's the way we're created, as warriors. That's how God has created us, as guys. And God reveals that part of Himself that is very much the warrior, the protector, the defender through the male gender. On the other hand, God displays that side of Himself in women that is more awesome and more beautiful than us guys or gals would ever possibly be able to imagine otherwise. Put a bunch of guys together, all you got's testosterone. There ain't much female side there at all. And it gets worse the longer the guys are together. It doesn't get better. The greatest problem I think we face today in understanding this awesome being called woman is that because she is so beautiful and so alluring, Satan has taken what God intended to reveal, an awesome part of His own creation, His own character, and turned her into something to be used and abused and lusted after. That's what Satan does with this awesome being called woman. Because she is so awesome and so alluring and so beautiful, why wouldn't Satan pick on that gender to make it something it's not? Rather than being someone who reveals a part of God's nature that would otherwise be hidden from our sight, Satan wants to turn that into something bad, right? As he does with everything else. Everything good that God has created, Satan will take it and try to turn it into something bad. And you can count on the fact that the crown of God's creation, the most awesome being that God created, the most beautiful, the most alluring being that God ever created, Satan is going to use that to his advantage. So the question is, and we're going to have to stop here for today, what do women want? Well, I think the same thing we all want from God. And that's basically relationship. And let me say it this way. To be pursued by our lover. We almost have to put ourselves in the woman's body at that point and say, we all want that from God. Us guys want that from God. We want to be pursued by our lover, by God. That knight in shining armor to ride in and sweep us away, to bring the glass slipper and put it on our foot. I mean, I know that sounds really feminine for us guys, but that's what we want from God, and that's what we're seeking for. So we're looking for in women, but we don't find it in women because God is the only place you can find that. We want to be sought after. We want to be desired in the good sense. We want to be held. We want to be comforted. We want to be honored. We want to be respected. We want to be listened to. In a word, we want unconditional love. Guys and gals alike. And God has created this awesome being called woman to help us understand that side of God. that He does pursue us, that He does ride in like a knight in shining armor to sweep us away, to take us where it's safe, you know, to be our God. And not only does God love us and desire to be in relationship with us, but especially He pursues that desire. He pursues us. But you know what? There's another side to that as well. That He also wants to be loved by us. Yeah, we want to pursue you gals. There's no doubt about that. We have our lovers that we want to pursue, but we also want to be pursued by you as well, to be loved by you, to be pursued, to be sought after by those whom we love with all our heart. It's not a one-sided story. It's not a one-sided relationship. Yeah, guys are called to be the pursuers in that sense. But that don't mean we don't want to be pursued as well. Same with God. God pursues us. He's the warrior, certainly. But He also is that side of God that gals reveal. The beauty, the awesomeness. From the beginning of the Bible to the very end, the cry of God's heart is this: choose me. Just like gals. The gals want the knight in the shining armor to come in and say, choose me. Do I look beautiful? Tell me I'm beautiful. Tell me I'm wanted. It goes both ways. I tell you what, God's awesome. We're gonna talk about some stuff in this series that kind of blows my mind. We've already talked about some of that stuff this morning, haven't we? Kind of crazy, huh? God's awesome. The Lord is a warrior. The Lord is His name. Lord bless you all. Amen. Give God a hand.